Hello guys, welcome back to another video in the Advanced Enemies series. Today I'm going to show you how to make a spawning enemy in Roblox Studio, and basically this enemy is just going to make the player's life a little more difficult because the enemy will constantly be spawning in more help to just basically destroy the player. And yeah, it's a very interesting type of enemy, and I think it will be very fun to make. So let's get into it. Okay guys, so I've opened up a new base plate and I just made these two characters for the enemies, one for the main spawning enemy and one for like the minions that will be spawned. They're kind of just semi-transparent enemies, kind of like the last tutorial, just a little different. This one's a little bigger. But yeah, and you may want to keep in mind, you may want to like change the stats of their humanoids. So I'm gonna make the bigger one have 200 health. Wait, it always does that. Always messes it up. But yeah, this one's gonna have 200 health, or 200 max health. Sorry, that's why it wasn't working. And just give it 200 health. And then this one can just have the normal 100, but I was thinking maybe this one could move faster, so I would increase the walk speed to 12, and then, oh wait, hope that's the wrong enemy. But yeah, I made the walk speed 8, and then for this one, the walk speed should be 12, which I already have it set. But yeah, you just want to kind of change up the stats between these two, because obviously you want the main one to be more powerful, or maybe you don't, I don't know, depends on your game. But yeah, the next thing we're going to do once you have your two characters is we're going to insert a folder, and we're going to call this characters. We're just going to insert a folder here in the workspace. I'll explain what this does later. And then we can add a script to server storage, and we're going to name this character handler. And if you saw the last video, you know what we're doing here. But basically, we are just going to put all the characters in this folder. So I'm just going to write out the code for that in this script, and then I'll cut to when I'm done and explain what all the code does. Okay guys, so I just wrote out the code for the following. So basically what this code does is basically I define two variables, which is the humanoid of the enemy and the humanoid root part of the enemy, and then basically I define a function which will find the closest player to the enemy. So it will define, you know, a large number, and then basically it'll just try and figure out, you know, with this logic, by looping through the characters folder, which character is closest to the enemy, and then it will return that basically through this function. And then in this while loop, we're just repeatedly kind of checking, or finding a target by using this function. And then if we find a target using the function, we're just moving to it. And I pasted this same code into both of these scripts, so for the minion AI and the spawning enemy AI. So you're going to want to have it in both enemies. So the same script in both enemies, because you want them both to kind of follow you. And if you play the game, it should work all fine and dandy. But obviously the next thing we need to do is make them attack you when they get close enough, because right now they just move and kind of squish into you and they don't stop or attack or do damage. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do next. And basically, yeah, so I'm just going to type out that code in both of these AIs, and then I'm just going to explain what it does. Okay guys, so I just wrote out the code in both of these. As you can see, I pasted it in both. Basically, this is just gonna make them do damage to you and stop. And basically, I'll explain what I added here. So it's kind of a little all over the place, but basically I added 2 more variables, which is the attack range. So this is in studs, so they have to be 5 studs away from you to hit you. And then I also added a debounce, so it's kind of like an attack debounce, so they don't just rapid fire attack you when they get close to you and instantly kill you. And then there's also, you know, a stop function which I created, which just makes them stop moving, so then they don't just move and squish into you like they were before. And then I made a attack function which basically fires the stop function, so they stop moving. And then yeah, and then oh wait, hold on, I'm just gonna delete that line. I don't know why I put that in there. We don't need that. But anyways, basically if there's not a debounce, then basically it's going to attack the player. And yeah, again, I explained what the debounce does. Yeah, the player is just gonna take 20 damage. And yeah, and then I also changed up some stuff in this while loop so it could actually attack the target. So I basically added the attack range stuff here. So if the target is within attack range, then basically we're not going to move to it. Instead, we're going to attack the target essentially. And yeah, so that's basically what that code does. Now if I play here, then they should stop and do damage, right? As you can see, they kind of like stop and do damage. They don't have an attack animation yet, and I will show you how to add that at the end of the video. But for now, it's functional, and yeah, it just works and it's nice. Yeah. So now that both of these enemies kind of work the same, we're actually going to take this minion and put it into server storage, because we don't actually need the minion in the workspace. We want it in the server storage so we can clone it and put it in the workspace when we essentially spawn it in. So now the enemy is basically done. The only thing now that we need to do is make it spawn in the minions that we made. And in order to do that, I'm actually going to use an animation event. And what an animation event does is it basically activates whenever a animation reaches a certain point in the animation, basically. So let me just kind of show you this. So here I have the animation editor, and I'm going to import an animation that I made, which is this spawn animation. And that's the animation you saw in the beginning of the video. And basically, if we play it, this is kind of what it does. But basically, I made an animation event in this animation right here. As you can see, it's called spawn. And basically, what an animation event does is whenever the animation reaches the point where the spawn is, so if we played the animation in the script, for example, you know, we played it, right? Whenever it reaches that point, it will activate the event, and then basically we can detect whenever the animation reaches this point in a script. And then basically the idea is we're going to spawn the enemy in, or the enemies in, the 2 enemies, whenever we hit this point. That's kind of my best way of explaining it. And basically, if you don't know how to create a animation event, all you need to do is click this wheel here, and you can click down here, right? It's very small, but if you click here, there's like a little settings thing you can just click. And then if you click show animation events, I already have it showing, but you can just, click it, right? And then basically it'll show this extra line here, and then basically you can just click wherever you want to add an animation event. So what if I wanted to add one right here? Then I could just click right here next to animation events. I can just click the plus here, and then it will bring me to this page where you can just name the animation event. So for instance, I could name this attack. I don't know. I'm not gonna actually make this an event, but then you would click save when you're done, and it would create it right there. As you can see, it's named attack. But I'm actually going to delete it because the only event we need is the spawn event right here. So basically when his arms are fully raised, the enemies will kind of spawn in. And I know this isn't the best animation, but this is for tutorial purposes. Anyways, but yeah, I named my event spawn with an uppercase S. You can name your events whatever you would like, as long as you remember the name, because it will be important for scripting later. But yeah, anyways, now once you save your animation to Roblox, the next thing you need to do is add an animation to your enemy. So you can just add an animation object, and then you pretty much just put the animation ID in there. Alright, so I just put the animation ID in there for my animation, and I also named the animation spawn, as you can see. So the next thing we're actually going to do is make the enemy able to spawn things, and we're going to use this spawn animation and its animation event to do it. So I'm going to quickly script that, and I will explain to you what it does. Okay guys, so I just got done typing out all of this code in here, and this is just going to be all the code that will be able to spawn him. So I kind of just changed a bit about it and stuff. So yeah, the first thing you may notice is I added this function here, which basically the spawn track is the spawn animation, so we define that here. And basically whenever it reaches the spawn event, which we created earlier, which I showed you how to do, basically it's going to spawn in the enemies, and this repeat loop is just spawning in two enemies in two different positions. So basically this first one is +8 on the x-axis, and this one's -8. That's the difference between those two. And then yeah, and then down here, right here, I made a function called spawn enemies, and basically this will basically spawn it will kind of activate the track here, so it'll play the animation on the enemy, and it'll also set spawning to true, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It also stops the enemy, so it stops in its tracks so it can spawn, and it isn't walking while playing the animation or spawning enemies. And yeah, and then down here I wrote a few things. So I made a task.spawn function, and basically what that does is it just runs in the background essentially. So I'm basically doing this so I can have two while true do loops running at the same time. So this while loop will run at the same time as this one, and it'll just run simultaneously with all the code. So basically what this is doing is every 8 seconds it's calling the spawn enemies function, which up here is going to set spawning to true. And basically in this loop I added a condition where basically we can't be spawning enemies if we want any of the movement or attacking to happen. So basically if not spawning, then it will do that. But if after the 8 seconds, it spawns enemies, then it will set spawning to true temporarily. So then this will not work. It'll stop moving. It'll stop trying to attack. And instead, it will just start doing this. It'll start playing the animation, which will eventually activate the spawn thing, which will create the clones, I guess, or the minions. And yeah, and then it'll wait 3 seconds. So basically the whole duration of the animation is 3 seconds. So it'll wait that long, and then it'll set spawning equal to false. And then this will continue. It's kind of a complex sequence a little bit, but it makes it so that the enemy can work properly and it can attack you and stuff. And then after, around 8 seconds of it pursuing you, it'll just spawn in some enemies to help it out and come and attack you as well. And yeah, so that is basically it for this code. Now I am going to show you how to add an attack animation so that they like slap you or whatever whenever they hit you. So I'm going to quickly code and add all that. Okay, so I added in the stuff. So the first thing I did was I added in this attack animation, as you see here, which I made. You can feel free to make your own animation. And if you don't know how to make animations, then you should check out some videos online. There's a ton of videos that teach you how to do it or use them. But anyways, so I just defined my attack animation, loaded it up in this variable. And then all I did with that variable is I just played it whenever we attacked, right after the enemy stops. And I put this code in the both the enemies, so it should work and it will make them attack you more nicely, I guess. See, it kind of hits you, I guess. So whatever, and as you see, these guys are attacking. They obviously just killed me, but yeah, that is about it for everything here. That is how all of this works. That is how you make a spawning enemy in Roblox. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like, subscribe, join the Discord. It actually is, the link to it is not working right now, but I'm gonna work on fixing that, so eventually it'll be fixed, and once it is fixed, please join. Also, feel free to search me up on Twitter. It's just at the crowned dev. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye.